Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the shop. In this video, we're gonna be building this mudroom built-in. We got a ton of storage space in here, some cubbies above, big drawers below, and a couple cabinets here. Nice little bench for sitting. So here we go. All right, so before we get into the video, real quick, I just wanted to mention the Patreon page. The link is below if you would want to join the Patreon page. It's a great way to support the channel. We just did our first Zoom meeting yesterday, so it was great to get to know some of you guys a little bit better. I'm gonna open up another tier and we're gonna do weekly YouTube lives, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, enough about that. Here we go. Let's start building this thing. So if you've been following the YouTube channel or the Instagram page for even a little bit of time, you know that we've been working on this rough sawn fir job for months. Been a whole house package. We did kitchen vanities, the whole thing, interior doors, and this is the last of the rustic fir projects, this mudroom. Mudrooms always are kind of fun because they're always a little bit different, and it kind of gets away from the typical kitchen or bathroom vanities and stuff that we do a lot of. So I always kind of have fun with mudroom built-ins. So I am breaking down some 1/2-inch plywood for the upper cubby cabinets. I'm using 1/2-inch. You'll see why later in the video when we get to that part, but trying to keep this thing lightweight. So you got the face frame going on there, and we'll get back to that later. Rowdy was working on the doors, getting everything coped, and then ran through the shaper. I didn't actually get any clips of him running the other parts through the other shaper, but yeah, you've seen us make doors a bunch. I got started on breaking down some plywood for the rest of the cabinet boxes. Rowdy had already, he kind of had a day ahead of me on this project, gluing up panels. You could see one there in the background for the door panels, finished ends, all that kind of stuff. Just really was a bunch of glue ups. I am edge banding my parts and then bring them over to the line boring machine for adjustable shelf holes. So our client wanted this giant 4-foot wide cabinet. It's 86 inches tall, and she wanted it split in half. So one half could be all adjustable shelving. The other half is going to be double hanging for jackets and stuff, so they can hang their coats and stuff when they come in from outside. So this cabinet is pretty big and has a ton of storage in it. It's another reason why mudrooms are always kind of cool, because everybody has different needs. Like people with kids want more lockers and stuff like that. These people don't really have little kids anymore, so they were looking for something a little different. We get the back on, just tacked down with some brad nails. Yes, I'm still using that M18 brad nailer. Eventually I will get my compressor hooked up and maybe get a pneumatic one, or I'll get the M12 one. And then I pre-drill and just screw that thing down. And then the toe kicks on this, I decided to do a little bit different than I typically do. You guys know I typically make like plywood feet, or sometimes I use the adjustable plastic feet. For this, I just decided to try something different. So I made a base, and I pre-pocket screwed the edges, and you'll see here in a sec, I just pocket screw it to the bottom of the cabinet. And typically on a big cabinet like this, I would do a ladder style toe kick, just because you could level that off first and then just kind of set the big cabinet on top. And if we wanted to do that with this job, we can. This will come off easy enough. Just a few pocket screws. And then it's very important to get that middle partition screwed in, so I just shove that spacer in there, and then you can see I pre-drill and screwed it in from the back. And this cabinet was big. It's exactly 48 inches wide and 86 inches tall, and they're going to be able to fit a lot of stuff in there. Moving on to doors. I had just a few doors on this. See, I put those biscuits down and lay my clamp on top of that. That way the glue does not get on the bar, and sometimes they'll leave like black marks on the wood, and I do not want that, especially on this, because I can't really sand it out, because we need to keep that rough sawn look. More cabinets going together. I wish I could work this fast in real life, but you know, we did knock this job out pretty quickly. I think we were working on it for like 3.5 days. And not having to do any of the finishing is obviously a huge deal. Especially finishing this rough sawn fur. I would not want to be doing that. So the clients they own a big commercial painting company, and they're having their guys do all the finishing on this stuff. Here's the bench. Get my drawer slides put in. And if you notice how far back the toe kick is on the bench, it's not supposed to be that far back. I screwed up, and I don't know really what happened. I made my toe kicks on those way shallow, so I do have to extend those out, because I only want my toe kick to go back like 3 inches is what I typically do. And somewhere my math was wrong, and I ended up with, I did it on this cabinet as well. The toe kick is way back there, so I got to fix that. Then I just use a spacer for these and set the slide on top of it and screw it in. And that way they are nice and consistent and square going back. Here's my drawer boxes. My drawer supplier that I use, and she's in Bend, small shop, and she does such an amazing job with these drawers, and she's super fast. I gave her this order. This is only 3 drawers. I gave her this order late in the afternoon, and she had them ready the next morning for me. So using local shops and stuff like that is always good. And then when they're good and they're like this, and she always does a great job, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then we could move to cutting the doors down, doors and drawer fronts. You guys know I glue up my doors oversized and cut them down after. I just prefer doing it like this. There's the big doors for the pantry. Those have a lock rail in them. Just because they're so tall, kind of want something in the middle there to help keep everything stable. And this machine, I love it. It is amazing, but it makes such a mess. I've got to figure out some kind of solution to help with the dust collection a little bit, because you could see it like shoots a burst of air after you cut the hole, and it just sprays those wood chips everywhere, which is good. You want it to do that, but you want it to go into a vacuum. So these are panels that Rowdy had already glued up. These are finished ends for the upper cabinet. Then I've got 2 for the lower cabinet. So I'm mitering an 1.5 inch piece on the front, just so it gives it that nice 1.5 inch face frame look when you're looking at it from the front. And then I'll show you guys how I like to hang my cabinet doors, especially on a big cabinet like this. It only really work with overlay, wouldn't really work on an inside cabinet. But you'll see I put some spacers down, and then I can kind of stand the door on edge. A lot of questions about hinges that I use too. We're using Blum hinges. The Insertas, so they just have that quick release clip so they don't get screwed on or anything. Alright, so there you saw I put those 1/4 inch, it's a 1/4 inch space I put in there, and so it stands on the edge, and then I can screw it in, and then when the door is closed, it's off the cabinet about 1/8 inch, which is exactly what I want. So there's not much adjustment. Then I flip the cabinet up on its side, and I pre-drilled a bunch of holes to screw this end panel on the side. And I measured and spaced out the screws evenly and stuff. And that's going to be all double hanging in there on that side of the cabinet. And this thing got heavy with all that stuff attached. And now it's starting to come together here. Get that door put back on. I didn't take the time to level this thing out perfectly on the floor either. I know this section of my floor is not terrible. It's not perfect, but it's not the worst. So I just kind of set everything up. Those little fillers there are just to give me some space on the edge of the drawer and the other cabinets. Just kind of, they frame it out a little bit. And then I measure and mark all my holes on the inside of the drawers so that they're all in the same spot and nice and consistent. And you can see the screw heads were sticking out right there. And then I just press the drawer front on, pre-drill a little hole in those marks that the screws made, and then I can go and screw these in from the inside of the drawer box. And they end up being very, very close, and then I can do whatever minor tweaks and adjustments I need to with the locking device of the drawer slide. So it's really just getting it as close as you can, and then you're able to make some adjustments there. And this method works good. And then I lock it in with 2 more screws at the bottom. Here's my other lower cabinet on the right side of the bench. Going to do the same thing here to get this door mounted. And then we do the same thing for the drawer front. And then I can move on to the bench top. So they did have some pieces of 8/4. So this was a full 2-inch thick. And we're going to use this for the bench top and keep it that full thickness. And this job it's been challenging. It's been fun. Working with this material has not been the easiest, most ideal thing. Having a project that like, okay, I can't really sand this out, or I can't mill it or anything like that, has been, you think it's going to be easier because it's like, oh, it's rough, it's rustic, it doesn't really matter, like, you don't have to be as careful, and that's true to an extent, but it's also more difficult in ways as well, because you kind of have to just use what you got. Like, you can't mill it down or anything like that. And also, the amount of slivers we have gotten in our hands is insane. Like, this stuff is just, it's rough. I mean, literally, no pun intended, but it is, yeah. I gotta say, I won't be disappointed when we're working on something else, which we will be actually next week. We've got a nice inset kitchen, which I am pretty stoked about. And so here we are back to the cubbies. So this is why I made the cubbies at a 1/2 inch, is because I'm using all these leftover, these are about 3/16 thick, these leftover veneers we had from when we made the doors, and I'm using these to line the inside of the boxes, because these are just going to be open and they need to be rough sawn fir. So it's giving us the opportunity to use up this leftover veneers that we had made, and I think this is gonna work out really well. So I put some Rube glue on the back, and then I'm just pinning these things in there. And then to attach the face frame to this, I don't ever do this, even if it's like paint grade or something, but I'm nailing the face frame on. With this thing being rustic, I didn't want to biscuit into the 1/2 inch. and I didn't really have a good surface to work off because the interior was lined with the rough sawn stuff. So we just brad nailed it on with some glue and sanded and filled those holes a little bit, and it looks fine. You can't even tell. I mean, that's one of the benefits of this stuff being rustic, hiding things like that. There's my bench top getting cut down to size. And the bench top turned out really nice. We get this thing sanded up and ready to put on. I mean, when these guys, it's still obviously rough and rustic, but they put a ton of lacquer on this stuff, and it'll be nice and smooth. You won't be getting slivers when you sit on this thing, for sure. And of course, we had to take a break and test it out. So this is just like a temporary little thing I'm using to put the upper cabinet, because I want to get this whole thing mocked up. So I screwed that piece on the back with a spacer in between, and then I screwed that to the back of the lower cabinet, and then I have another spacer there in the front, and just pocket screw it to the upper and lower cabinet. Works good for something small like this, just to kind of hold things in place. And we can get that door on there. And I didn't get any clips. I did attach the finished end panels. You'll see them on the upper and lower cabinet. You can see them in the background there. I didn't get a clip of that, but they basically just got screwed on from the inside. These little brackets I'm putting on the top of the cubby, I had to put a spacer, and then to bring it up flush with the face frame, and then I put these pieces that stick out, and this is how I'm going to kind of hang that cabinet up on top here. You see those wings on it, and that way it could just sit on top of the pantry cabinet, or it's not really a pantry cabinet, but that big cabinet, and then the other end sits on top of the upper cabinet and just kind of holds it in place. Good little trick. I actually do that same thing when I'm hanging like a cabinet above the fridge where the end panels are already up. You put those tabs on there, and then you can kind of hook it on. All right, that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I had a good time building this. This is obviously for the same clients that all that other rough sawn fur was for. We are officially, I think, done with the rough sawn fur. We still have more stuff to do for these clients. We're building some closets, master closet, and then just a couple other little closets they have in the house. But we're using a different material, so that'll be totally different. So it's been a lot of work working with this stuff, having to make the panels. I mean, everything is solid wood. So different for sure, but definitely fun. Like I said before, Patreon link is below. Website's below if you want to get some merch. Good way to support the channel. If you have questions, anything like that, leave them down below. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.